want you to imagine two things. One, you are part of a perfect system. It took a while and a lot of trial and error, but through methods unknown to the public, you've achieved peace in your time. You found a way to predict danger and those capable of causing danger before it even happens. Everything is calculated and measured. But what if, within that, there was something, someone, that couldn't be measured, who walks outside of the realm of the system's control, and has made it his life's mission to bring it all down, exposing the truth behind the flaws in your system, which has been kept well hidden, since the most important thing is not that it functions perfectly, but that people continue to believe that it does. How could you stop such a massive threat? Psycho-Pass is an anime original that came out in 2012, co-directed by Naoshi Shiotani and Katsuyuki Motohiro, and written by Gen Urobuchi. Also, character designs by Akira Amano, who you might know better as the man behind Hitman Reborn, video pending. Like Hitman Reborn, Psycho-Pass has been recommended to me a lot. Partially because it is an excellent anime, and also because everyone seems to be sold that I would like the primary villain, or well, one of the primary villains of the show, Shogo Makishima. Those of you who thought I would like this character read me like an open book. This video, however, has proven challenging, something I've said in previous videos, but just hear me out. It isn't because Makishima, although complex, isn't a character far beyond any of the others I've covered, particularly in this villain series so far. The puppet master type of evil isn't new to me. If not, the context surrounding Makishima opens a can of worms that could easily turn this video into an unfocused, pretentious conversation about society and how it should be handled. The fine line of trying to regulate and minimize human error and corruption without fully taking away human autonomy. Talking about this is unavoidable when talking about Makishima, but I want it to remain in the context of him and the characters he impacts in the story. I think in order to address Makishima and what makes him so dangerous, evil, and extremely interesting are four groups that need to be established for context. The first are the characters we follow, the protagonists of our story. CID Division 1, a criminal investigation department with the primary two in that group that will be brought up being Akane and Shinya. Two characters that each represent a struggle with justice and how it's contextualized in their world. Second are the multiple serial killers the CID has to deal with, which all end up coming back to the same man responsible for the death of Shinya's previous partner. Third is the Sybil system, a system that has found a way to put a number on dangerous human beings, even before they commit a crime via something called a crime coefficient. In fact, the number can be on anyone. Those with a high enough number are put in jail or become enforcers, hunting dogs that work for the CID along with investigators. Shinya currently finds himself as an enforcer. If your number is below the threshold, Dominator's guns given to the CID won't work. If it's high enough, the gun will be set on stun, and if it's super high, the gun will just kill you on the spot, regardless if you have committed an act of crime or not. The flaws and morals of this hyper-objective system are questioned by Akane, who wishes to enact true justice, and eventually other members of Division 1 follow her questioning. But the fourth has questioned and despised it for a long time, that being Makishima. I broke it apart like this since it makes it easiest for me to explain my thoughts on the character. The Makishima as he relates to groups 1 and 2, and Makishima as he relates to group 3, eventually bringing it all together. Makishima as he relates to group 1 and 2 is a sadistic, manipulative murderer. Throughout the series, we witness serial killers make art pieces out of their victims and hunt countless humans like prey in order to feel young and alive again, each enabled by Makishima, who wishes to observe these people. The obvious question is, why? Entertainment. For him, the human soul is fascinating, and seeing people act out their desires is something he enjoys. The world he lives in has taken away a lot of the stress that keeps us alert and active. Some stress helps motivate us, but with the Psycho-Pass, so much of that stress has been eliminated that some people are turning into living corpses. A life that isn't pushed to the brink is boring. When life faces fear is when the soul is tested. So he can find entertainment in the most wicked of places. Cocaine, my guy. McGregor looks like he is having a blast. Or a mental breakdown. Even the killers remark about how Makishima throws them away like broken toys when they don't live up to his expectations. He enjoys playing games with Division 1, in particular Shinya, who he believes can offer him the most amount of fun in this game of cat and mouse he plays with him. Even though Shinya is his biggest personal threat to his grand plan, he keeps him alive since he isn't done with him. It is undeniable that he derives enjoyment from outwitting others and even causing them pain. Halfway into Season 1, I found Makishima interesting due to the mystery surrounding him and the very personal and sexually tense dynamic between him and Shinya, but it was episode 11 where the other shoe begins to drop, as in his relation to Group 3. and how it ties into groups 1 and 2, allowing us to talk about the character within his full context. Easily one of the best scenes I've seen or read as it pertains to anime and manga. Makishima, with the goal to lure Shinya and test him, kidnapped Akane's friend. Shinya is injured and unable to chase after him, so Akane goes after him. Quote, "I think the only time people really have value is when they act according to their own will. So I've asked many people about their true repressed desires and observed their actions all this time." Akane yells at him, saying that he is a criminal. And how do you define crime? With the Dominator you're holding? Does the Sybil system that governs that gun decide it? Akane then aims the Dominator at Makishima, but his crime coefficient is low, and the gun locks. The doubt in regards to the system and the Dominators and how they work was placed early, as it was willing to work on a person who was innocent and yet had committed a crime. But this is the first time Akane, and therefore we as the audience, have seen the Dominator be pointed at someone who is clearly a criminal, and yet it do nothing. By analyzing a bioorganism's force field read by a cymatic scan, they figure out how a person's mind works. Science finally discovered the secret behind the human soul, and the society changed drastically as a result. However, people's wills are not a part of that assessment. I wonder just what sort of criteria you use to divide people into good and evil. I want to bear witness to the splendor of man's soul. I want to find out once and for all whether it's truly something worth admiring. However, when humans base their lives around the Sibyl's oracle without ever considering what they really want, do they really hold any value? He throws Akane the gun from the murderer Shinya just dealt with. I guess I'll try testing you too. I want to assess your judgment and actions as a detective. Makishima threatens to kill Akane's friend and begins to torture her. Akane, however, is stuck between her own judgment and the system that she knows, that she's comfortable with, that represents the peace created by sacrificing the human will. She tries using the Dominator, but it won't work since his crime coefficient gets lower and lower. You people can't measure my sins. If anyone, the only people who'd be able to judge me are those who are capable of killing based on their own will. Akane threatens Makishima again, saying let her go. Or I'll be killed, not by a machine, but by your own intent. That'd be an admirable resolution in its own way. Now, you feel the importance of life in your index finger, don't you? That's something you can never experience as Sibyl's puppets. It's the weight of deciding something by your own free will. Akane drops the shotgun rifle thingy, unable to do so, leaving Makishima disappointed. Regret your helplessness and despair. Slitting the throat of Akane's friend and leaving, proving that Akane was incapable of deciding for her own, even when a human life was right in front of her. I think this scene captures what was stated earlier, but then adds in the element of Makishima as he pertains to the Sybil system. This is where things get tricky when discussing his character. It is possible that in a normal world without the Sybil system, Makishima is a relatively normal person, not living in a world that has sapped humans of their ability to truly live according to their own will. It is also largely possible that Makishima is still a sadistic, charismatic killer finding entertainment and pushing people to the brink. If there was a character from another series I would contrast him with to make a clear distinction, I would take Johan from Monster, since I can't shut the fuck up about that character. Someone who takes human life with a belief that there is no value and meaning to be found. Makishima takes human lives in the pursuit of finding value he believes to be there. Both evil, but where one finds nothing, the other finds joy, or hopes to. We never get a backstory with Makishima, but if not, speculation as to why he is the way he is. The anime has deliberate shots of both Makishima and at times Shinya reading books, which I don't think you need to have read these books to get psychopaths or these characters, but knowing what they are about at least helps add context to things about Makishima and how he views the Sybil system and how Shinya views Makishima as well. 1984 by George Orwell, a story that serves as a warning of a future full of mass surveillance and insane control over the people. Pretty on the nose in regards to the Sybil system, something that goes as far as to label people as dangerous and where everything has to be approved via the system. But when someone wears a helmet that stops the cymatic scans from working, a man beats a woman to death in the middle of a street, and all the security robots nearby did was warn the woman who is being beaten to death that she is stressed. The people watched and did nothing, unable to act for themselves. The next book is Heart of Darkness, we see being read by Shinya, a story that goes into how a sailor that is separated from what was at the time modern society will regress into his primal urges, no longer pressured by morals that do not come from some internal sense of being, but social pressures that determine why we don't commit certain evils. In other words, there is little difference from the civilized and primitive man. I think this points to both Shinya and Makishima, one clearly isolated and devoid of the morality created by trying to harmonize in the modern world, and as for Shinya, showing there is a thin line separating him from the man he hates. Next is A Revolution Sabotaged Before It Began, another one read by Makishima, a story about the collapse of the Soviet Union, which I'm sure had an influence on how Makishima viewed the system and how he would go about his moves. And a book Makishima goes as far as to recommend to one of his underlings, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? A story that questions what is real and what separates humans from robots, if there is anything that separates the two, since humans can lack the very thing that is supposed to tell us apart. These books, while adding some context and symbolism to things that the series tells in other ways, this also humanizes the character, adding that he enjoys something as simple as reading a physical book and gaining knowledge from those that came before him. Reading, in fact, is therapeutic for him, and allows him to feel connected to an author that understands his thoughts, and learning that Shinya is well educated in the same way only makes Makishima more obsessed with him. It gives him some form of human connection that the Sybil system took away from him. This lack of connection, or the rejection of the world he lives in, makes it easier for him to view human lives to have the value he gives to them, based on if they meet his criteria or not. But Makishima isn't just a villain who enjoys watching people break. His very existence is a paradox that the Sybil system cannot explain, and eventually desires to make him a part of. If the system is supposed to detect and eliminate threats before they act, then why can't it even register him? This makes him more than just a criminal, it makes him a walking, breathing failure of the entire system. One he has planted in the minds of Division 1 even more than some of the members already had, and the flaws he exposes to the outside world via organizing mass crimes and inciting riots, tampering with the media and information to further advance his plan. I do need an explanation, however, as to how he can match Shinya in hand-to-hand combat, because his intelligence is something that can be given context, but my suspension of disbelief broke for a bit when he Randy Orton punk-kicked the living fuck out of the poor bastard. But in the end, the battle between them was never going to be settled with fists alone anyways, because once again Akane can't bring herself to kill him, even though that's exactly what Shinya wants. This is what truly sets Makishima apart and makes him interesting. Not looking at him in a vacuum as it pertains to groups 1 and 2, and then looking at him in the context of group 3, but putting it all together. He doesn't just challenge the system, he forces everyone around him to confront their own convictions. Shinya, driven by revenge, sees execution as justice as it pertains to Makishima. Akane, bound by her ideals, refuses to abandon the very principles that separate them from him. And Makishima, he stands in the middle of all of it, knowing that whether he lives or dies, the damage has already been done. The cracks in the Sybil's foundation are now exposed, its supposed omnipotence shattered by a single man who was never meant to exist. Then Makishima and Akane learn the truth. The Sybil system is made up of human brains, all fused into one collective mind, convinced it's evolving. For Akane, this is just earth-shattering. The system she believed in, the one she's worked for, isn't just a machine, it's human, just like the people it judges. Worse, it thinks it's improving with every passing moment, convinced that its control over society is the only way forward. It strips away any sense of autonomy, forcing people to live within a system that dehumanizes them. What Akane once believed was justice is now exposed for what it really is, a controlled, evolving prison. For Makishima, this is just confirmation for everything he's been saying. He's always seen the Sybil system as a massive lie that drains humanity of its soul. The fact that it's made of human brains doesn't change his opinion, it just proves his point. He spent his life trying to expose the system's flaws, and now he has the ultimate evidence that it's not just a machine, it's people, just trapped in their own twisted idea of order. In his eyes, this makes it even worse. There's no true freedom in the system, only control, and he'll destroy it to prove that real freedom can only come from chaos, breaking away from any system that claims to have all the answers, returning the power to the people. That's where the conflict lies. Makishima and Akane are two opposing forces. Makishima rejects the system, fully aware of its flaws, and wants chaos to reign, for the time being. He believes in living freely, acting on desire without being trapped by a structure that suppresses real human experience. Akane, on the other hand, still believes in justice. She knows the Sybil system is far from perfect, but she fights to find a way to make it work and to work a way around it, fixing the whole thing from within until one day people no longer need it and it can be shut down. Quote, "The law doesn't protect people. People protect the law. People have always detested evil and sought out a righteous way of living. The law is the accumulation of those people's feelings. They're neither the provisions nor the system. They're the fragile and irreplaceable feelings that everyone carries in their hearts. Compared to the power of anger and hatred, they are something that can quite easily break down. All throughout time, people have prayed for a better world. In order for those prayers to continue to hold meaning, we have to try our best to protect it to the very end. We can't just give up on it." Even though in episode 11 she was struggling with her own morals, it was more so the belief in the system as to why she couldn't kill Makishima. But now she doesn't kill Makishima because she is holding on to her beliefs. It would mean losing herself, becoming the very thing she opposes. She'd be letting go of everything that makes her who she is. Makishima wants her to do just that. He wants her to fall into the same chaos that he thrives in. But Akane refuses to let that happen. She won't give up on her sense of justice. Shinya, on the other hand, doesn't give a fuck anymore. The contrast between Akane and Shinya is important here. Akane is trying to walk the line, looking for a way to balance justice with humanity. Shinya, on the other hand, is more willing to let go of the rules if it means achieving his goals. He's aware that what he is about to do is a wrong action, but he is convinced that it is what is necessary, something Akane can't bring herself to do. Makishima had planned to spread a virus to the crops, forcing the Sybil system to expose itself and reach for help in order to stop a dying, starving people, but is stopped and cornered by Shinya before he's able to do so. Quote, "Everyone is alone. Everyone is empty. People no longer have any need of others. You can always find a substitute for any talent. Any relationship can be replaced. That's the world I grew tired of, and yet, for some reason, I can't even imagine someone else besides you killing me." What makes Makishima so dangerous is how he shouldn't exist but does, threatening the very foundation of his world, being all the more difficult to deal with because it's quite hard to fight against something that you know is wrong but you ultimately agree with, an anomaly that raged against the machine and lives in the minds of the viewers and the characters long after we finish watching. Season 1, that is. This destiny must have awaited them since long before they had even met. They were not like mere ships passing in the night. It was not like they didn't understand each other. They understood each other better than anyone else, and each was focused solely on the other. The most dangerous man in the world, killed with a single bullet. The second thing I want you to imagine is watching this shit with Kanye.